in the Q&A section above. Thank you. We are listening to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. So my name is Thomas Walenta, as stated on the slide. So I'm a DBA student from the cohort of 2023, and I'm very proud that even the speaker after me is from our joint cohort. So we have two papers presented here. Rethinking time and program management. So program management is a vast topic of my DBA thesis. And time is one aspect in program management and in life, So what I looked at is, do we have other views than our normal sequence views on making decisions in programs? So why is the program even a topic? So traditional project management is based on predictions, on milestones, on schedules. It's a linear and measurable time concept. We look at milestones and we look at durations of tasks. And that's traditional project management. Programs are a little bit a different animal. Programs are longer than projects normally. They are more complex. And they need what the old Greek called kairos. It's not the chronos view on time, but it's the view on time that we're looking for the right moment for action, for decisions. So it's a little bit what we also heard in the presentation before. We have this adaptive competence that you understand if an opportunity comes along or a threat comes along that you need to act timely. So that is very present in programs which tend to be much longer than projects and which tend to be also a little bit more fuzzy in the setup. In addition, there are not only these Greek concepts of chronos and kairos, but there are also some concepts of time that are coming out of the Chinese culture 2,500 years ago. So we have this Tai Chi logic, which is concerned with solving conflicts of two different aspects. So it's a little bit related to Hegel's dialectics with thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Tai Chi logic looks at this yin-yang, two sides, and they might get into conflict, but before that happens, we can take a decision and action to make something new out of it. That's Tai Chi logic view of time, finding the right time to act that the conflict isn't escalating. And Qi is also a very common Confucian concept, which is represented by the wave. We have a impetus, we have a flow of power and of opportunities, and we have to understand where this wave is going to, and then maybe ride the wave. This is also related to what we see in the Western world with the concept of process time. When we have a process that's going on, and we want to understand when the process needs the next decision. Good. So the problem is, if you go to the world, the programs still are perceived to be failing, yet we are trying to improve the planning process, estimation, but I think, it's really the lack of timing. And this is supported by some of the literature that is quoted in my paper, that we have in governance of big programs, especially when they are in the public space, that we have a delay of necessary decisions, and this leads also to a status of programs that is not beneficial and that's not supporting the success. So the purpose of my paper is to introduce a temporal governance framework, a theory that combines the time concepts, chronos, kairos, but also the Chinese ones I mentioned here. So the problems are the chronocentric time models overlook the situational and qualitative time idea. And so what happens if practitioners have a schedule and they go along and, real life doesn't fit to that schedule, they take side steps. Then there is a mismatch between what is acting, what is really happening on the floor of the project or program, and what was the idea, what should happen. That's a gap. So we have little attention to qualitative or strategic time, Kairos. We have almost no attention on Chinese time concepts. And there is no framework integrating all this and trying to help programs to find the right decision-making timing concepts. So the research question is, how can integrating Kronos, Kairos, and Eastern temporal logics improve program governance and program progress? The methodology was based on a literature review. So I looked at program management case studies, program management theories, the standards in program management. I looked at studies on time, starting with Heidegger with his philosophical determinations what time is and philosophy. And then we came up with the 4 time logics. We integrated that into one framework, and we found 5 cases that illustrated the application of the framework, even if it was not formulated at this time when they did that. Theoretical background, we have this Western Kronos and Kairos distinction. Mainly we are working, and that's why the clock representing Kronos is in red. Mainly in projects, it's absolutely okay to work along a Kronos timeline with a schedule, with milestones, with durations and so on. But it's linear, it's quantitative. We add times on there. Once we come into the process timing, we need something like the ways that we understand where is now the flow of time supporting our progress, supporting our program, and then we can act according to what she is giving us as a tool to go forward. On the other hand, we have this qualitative timing, the situational, the harmonic dynamic, represented by Kairos in Western, represented by this flash, and the Tai Chi logic represented by Yin and Yang. And putting these 4 together in a framework gives you some concepts that you can find in papers described. So we have this temporal ambidexterity, which means that we, as program managers, as decision makers in programs, we need both hands, to look at the quantitative and the qualitative timing. We need judgment so that we understand when we have to act on events that happen outside of the chronological timing. We need governance, so decision frameworks more on a different level. We need signatures, which means do we have some preferences? So maybe a project manager is well advised to have a signature on the Kronos side, but a program manager in a fuzzy program should really look into the Kairos area and look at the long-term and sustainable consequences of his decisions. And we need a harmony, before we have a crisis, before we have a conflict exploding, we have to make sure that we can use things like Tai Chi logic, very much described by Ding in 2020 in his book about Tai Chi logic. Levels of governance, on the individual level, Kronos is represented by scheduling, Kairos by intuitive judgment, She by situational fluency, so we understand where the situation is going, and Tai Chi by personal balance. On the team level, we look at milestones, adaptive collaboration, informal influence. So it's more not looking at what has been defined in the schedule, but do we have as a team a judgment, a joint judgment? We can deviate from the chronological schedule. And in Tai Chi logic, we can we can use it to mediate conflicts, to make sure they don't um, explode, And on the governance level, organizational level, we have the governance cycles. We have to talk about budgets, how they can be influenced by Kronos. By the way, without a schedule in a program, there is no budget, because if you don't know how long you plan to go, how would you really estimate your cost or even the benefits you will get from the program? Kairos is very much related to what we talk about in strategic pivots. So when we come to a situation where we understand, okay, we have really to turn around and go another direction. And she is about the ecosystem and the context sensing. And Tai Chi Logic is about balancing efficiency and innovation. Case examples, being Olympics. So they had a very strict coronas schedule, and all Olympics have a schedule and also a budget. But they had to deal with all these outbreaks in COVID, and they did it excellently. So when something happened in the context of the Olympics, like COVID, with all its events, local events, and events, how you protect the people coming in, they did it very well. And there is a very good paper on how they did this. The outbreaks are really the Kairos examples, Pyeongchang in Korea was also the Winter Olympic Games, and they had a legacy program set up after it was. So they had a governance, and they tried to use all the benefits, all the venues, all the assets they produced, and it was very flexible and Tai Chi inspired. In Norway, the DNB Bank embarked in a program to have a digital transformation, and they really did both follow a plan, but also as they became more knowledgeable about what it means, they understood that innovation is driven by their Kairos understanding. In the UK, we had the COVID-19 rollout. It was also initially a very chronological plan, but they had a lot of deviations where they looked at the Kairos thing. So something happens, so we have to do something, And HS2, the railway program in the UK, also had a lot of accelerated schedule deviations, and this is also something why they, in the end, produced a lot of benefits. So implications for program leadership about this TGF is think as a program leader in multiple time logics. So you have to understand it. Plan for Kairos moments, so very well sense in the context of the program what is happening, positively and negatively, and balance your control of the chronos and the flexibility in being in the Kairos sense. So leadership is about governing time, not just the tasks. Future research, I envisioned, how are leaders really recognizing kairotic opportunities? How can Xi and Tai Chi, the Chinese versions, enhance timely decision making? And how does temporal ambidexterity improve outcomes? Which are the effects on progress of programs? Empirical validation of the TGF across contexts and industries. Conclusion: time is not merely a metric; it's a strategic resource of program managers. If you handle time well, in those four aspects, you are improving the chances of progress in your program. Effective governance means that you balance both of Chronos and Kairos, and you are also guided by implementing Xi and Tai Chi logic. And program leadership requires temporal ambidexterity. I quoted 6 references, and I think I almost hit the 15 minutes. Thank you very much, and I'm waiting for your questions.
Thomas, my congratulations and my compliments on your work, on your paper. We enjoyed listening, and at the end of the day, learning something new. So thank you so much for your time. Also time management, most importantly, I have to say. Potential questions will be raised in the Q&A section. So there is already for Dr. Peter. If any for Mr. Thomas Walenta, please Thomas answer directly in that section. Okay, great. So I would like now to invite the